Finance Committee to order. Today is February the 27th. We have several of our committee members here. Just as a reminder, since this is a special call meeting and there are no actionable items, we will not have public comment, but we don't have anyone here to do public comments. But we will go ahead and get our meeting started. I would like to thank our school board members for joining us today, and I'm going to turn it over to our school board members so that they can introduce themselves and go ahead and get started with the presentation. And again, we just want to thank you all for coming. And one more thing, sorry, before I turn it over to you all, I did want to do a quick reminder that when we consolidated the committees, the education used to have an education committee that now falls under budget and finance. So that is why we are here today, just making sure that we want to touch base and hear about what's happening in MNPS. Council members were given the opportunity to submit questions in advance, and we will have those questions answered through the presentation. So with that, thank you again to our school board members, and I'm going to turn it over to you all.
Thank you. My name is Frida Player. I am chair of the school board, and I represent District 7. I'll have my fellow colleagues introduce themselves.
Cheryl Mays, representing District 6, which is the Antioch-Cane Ridge Cluster.
Erin O'Hara Block, representing District 8, the Hillsborough Cluster of Schools.
Berthine and Abba McKinney, representing District 4 and also serving as the vice chair of the board.
Well, we'll just go ahead and get started. Thank you for inviting us to Budget and Finance Committee. We're a pleasure to be here, and we will love to invite you to our school board meetings. It's opposite of your meetings on the second and fourth Tuesday of the month in Brantford Avenue. We start at 5 o'clock, and usually we get done by 6:30, 7 o'clock, so we won't take up your whole evening. We try to run a very efficient meeting, but you're more than welcome to come and join us as we discuss a lot of the detailed things of what it takes to really govern and manage and make sure our schools have the oversight, governance, and support that they need. So we are a award-winning, Emmy-winning district. Every student known, we won Emmy for the best cultural documentary, like 2 weeks ago, less than a month ago, early this month. And so our children, there's our children, our babies, are there with their Emmy that they won, which Dr. Battle accepted on their behalf, about the song that they wrote the lyrics to of Every Student Known. And we also did a Spanish version, in which they also wrote Spanish lyrics to in a Spanish context. So they didn't even translate it word for word, but they actually translated in the context of the Spanish language. So we are very proud of our students, and we are proud to say we're Emmy Award winners. All right, our academic achievements. This is a recap of 23-24. We're currently in the 24-25 year, but this is a full comprehensive recap of the achievements that we have had during TCAP and, of course, results and graduation. We have had the highest level of graduation rates at 85.7%. This is highest in Metro history that we have and that we have reached. And also, I want to be mindful of and let the council members know the graduation rates have become more stringent than they have in the past, that you have to graduate in 4 years in 1 semester. Before, there was a longer length in time. So even with the more stringent requirements, we have reached the highest level we've ever had in Metro Schools history. And we hope and planned and expect to see that and get that into the 90s and up to 100% in the upcoming years in the future is our goal. We have had higher proficiency rates than we have before. We have tested across every category, including integrated math, 1, 2, and 3. So we have increased our proficiency in 2024, increasing than we did the year before in 2023. So we're increasing that. And our ELA scores, our English Language Arts scores, have been the highest they've ever been since the new standards have been produced, and we're surpassed pre-pandemic levels. I don't know if you're sure if you're aware, but the testing the testing scores or the test itself have become much more rigorous, and our standards as a state rigorous. So we have the highest education standards in the entire country in Tennessee. So when we're looking at this, we're looking at what we have accomplished, but even the highest standards that we have throughout the country. TCAP scores have improved in every level and every grade content. We have 1-year TCAP scores where grades 3rd through 8th grade has exceeded the state performance, and in 17 out of the 21 grade subject compensations. So we're outpacing the states in a lot of our achievement, and in those that we're either meeting or becoming close to do that. And then the 1-year TCAP score, or the end of course, this is what you do at the end of the year when we finish the education portion of each subject. We either met or surpassed the state in 5 out of 7 achievement in subjects. So, and then we also have been level 5 TVOS scores for the 3rd year in a row. And which is really important that we build on growth from 1 year from the next. So it's not just you hit a certain mark. You have to surpass the growth you did the year before. So you're actually building on one on top of the other.
Yes, I just want to interject and say that last statement, we're a level 5 district, 3 consecutive years in a row. Just to note, that has never happened in the history of Metro Nashville Public Schools. So the fact that we have hit it not just once, twice, but 3 times in a row is major for our school district. And so when we talk about the return on investment, this is the return on investment that we want to see for our students.
Our education recovery scorecard. So MNPS has significantly outpaced the growth of the state, and on average by more than 67% of a grade level from 22 to 24. And then we also surpassed state and rebounded almost a quarter of a grade level from 22 to 24. So we are actually recovering from the pandemic at a higher rate and at a rate than most of our colleagues and most of our counterparts in the state and across the country. And so MNPS was one of 5 large urban districts that that showed up in the top 10 list for both reading and math. And this is, as you see, is people from across the country, from Ohio, Texas, DC, Louisiana, North Carolina, and Texas, that we have had top recovery in math and then also in reading. And we're the only urban school district that has done this twice in a row. In 2 years in a row, we have been on this list, and we're the only school district in our region, in our country to do this.
Oh, yeah, I just have to wait a few minutes. So with that data, we also want to acknowledge that that study was done. They looked at more than 8,000 school districts across the nation, urban school districts, our size across the nation. And so with our ranking in there being in the top 10, not just once, but twice in a row. This is our 2nd year being in the top 10 in both reading and math.
So what led to those outcomes? First, our staff. We have to acknowledge the great work our teachers have done, the administrators, support staff, students, families who also work hard outside the classroom to grow this every day. This is, education is a labor-intensive sector, and it really goes to the service of the people who actually provide the teaching and administration, and that we are really proud that every person really take part and take the education of our children seriously and do it with fidelity and efficiency and most importantly, passion. Investment by the mayor and this body, the council, the investment that you have made into MNPS, you have seen how it's reflected in our test scores and what we have achieved compared to the state and to other parts of the country. And that fact that we have the major test books and materials. When I came on the board in 2019, we only had classroom sets. Now we have books for every child to take home with them. And so that's one of the big advances that we've had, that we've done. And we see when you provide those resources to the children, you see the results immediately. And then also social emotional learning. ESSER funds, also that help put cash infusion into high-quality curriculum materials to be consistent, and to help put like kind of additional support onto our trainings and professional development. We increased professional development and planning time for teachers, be able to put new learning opportunities to really make them more effective and to master their subjects. And then leadership frameworks, and that really talks about coaching and feedback from our curriculum coaches to really teach our staff and our teachers how to teach the material, how to master material, and have more effective techniques. So our enrollment is about 80,500. That's up from over about 159 students from the previous year. We do a census count 40 days in, required by state, that there's basically census counts several times throughout the year. So we're giving you the official census count that we did 40 days into the school district. If you just took district-only schools, you have 67,000, almost 68,000, and that's up by 800 students. And if you include the charter commission schools, so these are schools that are located in Davidson County, but they are under the purview of the state charter commission. They're not under our purview. And that's roughly 4,000 people, and that's students, and went up to 1,000. And what account for the increase? The continued improvements. We have continued to improve our academic standards, our academic outcomes, and so that has brought more people back into the district. Our increased staffing pay, so we have better quality staff, teachers who are teaching within our school, employees who are providing a quality experience for our students and our families, and various programs and initiatives, including University MNPS, Promising Scholars, and other signature initiatives that brings a whole holistic support to our students and our families. So key safety updates. Our focus is to create a safe and supportive environment for all of our students. We have a commitment to safeguard the rights and the well-being of all of our students and families. And we take pride that we have a very diverse district, and we have very student populations from very different ethnics and backgrounds. And we're here to educate the whole child, and that every child that walks through our door will have a high quality education. We do not seek or store information regarding immigrant status of the students which we serve. Every child in America is guaranteed to a free and appropriate education under the law. That's under the Constitution of the United States and under our state constitution. And then also we uphold the law of the land, which is stated by this U.S. Supreme Court with Pyler versus Doe, that no matter of immigration status, students have a right to an education. And state law requires that kids between 6 and 17 are required to be enrolled in a K-12 institution and receive educational services. So by state law, we have to provide education services to our children, which we happily do. So legal authorization requirement, in absence of emergency, any law enforcement activity, including immigration, must be require explicit legal authorization, and this applies to student records and speaking to students on school property. Students are protected under the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, or also known as FERPA. There's safeguards student records, so anyone cannot just come and access any student's records. It must have a valid court order or subpoena to have access to any student information. And then privacy rights, when parents entrust our privacy right to us, we also take very seriously and diligently to protect the family's privacy and constitutional rights regarding their overall well-being. So for legal review, if an immigrant enforcement official comes to a school, we'll go through our legal department to review thoroughly that's in compliance with the laws. Families will be notified, and as permitted, we will work in coordinates of the legal authority. If an agent comes to our schools, the school principal and administration are directed to provide asked to provide identification and legal documentation, but also no act will be done without approval from an MNPS legal team, which is under Metro Legal Department. So our key security updates. So previous to the Antioch shooting, these were all the security enhancements that we had prior to January 22nd. So we had an extensive security protocol enhancement that was going. This is actually not all of the security enhancements. We want to be mindful of what that looks like and have confidentiality, just because we do not want to have an easy blueprint for others to try to be copycats. But this is also a lot of things that we have done and that we took seriously before and even after Covenant. So this is what we've been doing for years about protecting our students and being very serious about protecting our students. So our school plans and assessments, MMPD and MMPS conduct annual safety assessments in all of our schools, and we have 160 schools. Assessments evaluate potential threats, emergency preparedness, safety protocols. They are constantly updated and developed with comprehensive safety plans that are in partnership each year. I would say Dr. Battle and Chief Drake have a great professional working relationship. They have worked together to improve the safety. We saw that in the emergency response, how quickly and efficiently that happened and how we worked together to make sure that we were able to turn students home to their parents within 2 hours of the incident, which was unheard of. In most other districts where an incident has happened, it has taken at least 6 to 8 hours for that to occur. We have plans that includes emergency responses, crisis management, other security measures. Tennessee state law mandates that we have safety plans and that they remain confidential and not subject to public disclosure to protect staff and students. If you have looked at our incident and other incidents, whether it was Covenant or even others across the country, you have noticed the perpetrators often use other incidents as a blueprint for their acts. And we want to be mindful of how we do that and what we do, because they build on one another and they feed off one another. So it's one thing to be very diligent and be very mindful that the perpetrators are looking at other incidents and realizing and using that as a blueprint for their acts. And confidentiality to prevent unauthorized access to sensitive security measures and emergency response. We think it's very important that we keep that close to the vest so we understand how to protect our students and our employees. This is the Evolve system, and there's initial threat detection. So this one has reliable detection. There's an easy free flow system to make sure we are efficiently getting our students from the school bus or their car or from their parent drop off. And a repeatable installation process, so they're easily to be moved around the different parts of the building. There's a red box threat resolution, so if we see something that potentially happened, it's actually highlighted in the system. And also provide a more welcoming entry. We want to be very mindful. The school is an intimate place for students to learn, and we want to keep that intimacy present and have it be a safe space and not bring a presence of hardening our schools, where our schools will become warm and welcoming. So we want to do it in a less intrusive way possible. Motorola and Evolved. Motorola kind of basically has the base system. Evolve has the base system for concealed weapons detection. Motorola is the company that also they work with. They incorporate Motorola camera equipment and integrate it within our security system that we already currently have. So the systems really work and mesh together that we have, particularly with the new detection system. And that's one of the reasons why we chose Evolve, because it would be more of an integrated and have more of an easier transition between the two and seamless. The FTT settlement, I know there's been issues regarding this, involved marketing materials, the outcome that there were school districts that had the opportunity to be released from their leases, and not one school district, to our knowledge, did remove themselves from the leases with Evolve. So we have a weapons detection system and not metal detectors. A lot of people ask for metal detectors. And the thing about weapons detection systems, it does what metal detectors do and it has more enhanced services. So part of it uses AI to alert items that has a weapon signature. So it takes it and it grows and it improves itself to different types of weapons and what it looks like. With a metal detector system, it only detects metal and all the alerts are the same. So it won't deteriorate between a weapon and, let's say, a glass case. If your glass case is, is a metal case or has metal in it, it will be detected as the same way. There's a low activity secondary rate, so it has a smart system built into it. and it allows for a quicker targeted screening. So it's easier to do the secondary screening where you can set to the side and actually have the focus area that you want to examine without going through the entire bag of the student. Less staff is required and the flow is faster so they can get to their students and get to the homeroom quickly. And then the secondary rate for metal detectors is it's much higher, it's up to 50%, and it's much more labor intensive. You need much more staff to do this. Implementation planning, we will have a gradual rollout. The goal is to do it 2 per week as we get the equipment in. There will be school-specific communications to families before units are installed and activated. We have training sessions with the staff in our campuses and schools prior to deployment. And we will have training for school-based staff, and we will continue to review and recess each time we go through this to make it a more efficient and effective system. Social emotional learning at Antioch, we provided counseling and grief sessions immediately after the incident. We had a soft return to schools. We were very diligent about making sure we had a smooth transition coming into that as much as we could have. We made sure we had counselors and psychologists and social workers available, not only for the students, but also for the staff. And we also offer home visits by counsel and social workers if they need something for the entire family. We are continuing to provide mental health guidance and support for our students who need it. We know this is a trauma that's not going to be immediately healed from. And so we know this is requires sustained support, and we are committed and we will provide that. And then we work with families individually if they need special needs, whether they have experienced violence in their own personal family outside the school to help deal with the tragedy of what happened in our school and also outside of our school. Our budget priorities. So we're starting to begin. So the end of January, the board came up with their 2026, fiscal year 2026 budget priorities. And then you'll see this current year, our budget priorities continue strategic ESSER investment. So taking the high productive, high results from our ESSER, the programs with our ESSER funds, and continuing operations, what it takes to maintain our school at the current level, and consistent with our sets, and strategic employee compensation, and make sure our teachers are continuing to be the best teachers in the United States. And we all go on to budget priorities, continuing education investment, moving from ESSER funds to operating funds, continuing our level of operations. We have a high level of operations. We want to continue that and make sure that is the best to our ability. And then strategic employee compensation, continue to provide steps and COLA to our students, to our employees. We understand it takes a lot to educate our children, and we want to do that and make sure that our staff are being compensated well. And then continue our comprehensive safety and security planning. We understand with the incidents, we want to keep that we're up to date, state-of-the-art, being nimble, being effective, that this is an ever-evolving aspect of safety and security as it evolves day to day. So we want to make sure that we continue that and have supports and investment to make sure that we know this is not a one-time investment or a one-time entity. You have to continue to grow and make sure that happens. And I believe, and then our preliminary budget overview. So our current operating budget is $1.25 million. We put the ESSER Bridge Fund at $77 million. Of course, we have the facility and maintenance and cost adjustment. We are literally working through that in real time. Then we have strategic employee compensation, and we're working through this. So we're in the middle of our budget process. We are talking to principals, putting together the school-based budgeting, and then bringing that up to the support hub as they figure their overall department budgeting. And then that will help do the over process that we will submit to the mayor sometime in April before he files his budget to Metro government. Our major bridge investments that we are translating and moving and transferring, not relating, into our budget are school nurses. Before COVID, school versus, we did not have the level that we wanted to, but now we have the levels that we want to, and we want to continue that and make that a permanent fixture within our system. Classroom associates. Part of the issue was, really having enough subs into our schools. So we came up with an innovative idea of that we have classroom associates. And with Classroom Associates, you have basically a permanent sub that makes a full-time salary that knows the building and knows the employees. So it makes it easier for a student to have a trusted voice. It also makes it easier for teachers to be able to translate their plans. They're familiar with the teachers' plans. And we've seen a great return on our investment and more stability instead of having the big deficit of trying to fill all the sub vacancies that we've had. And this has become a very successful program that we're very proud of. STARS counseling, this goes back to our social emotional learning to ensure that we have counseling provided to the social emotional learning needs. Community Achieves, have the community support to provide the wraparound services for our children. Our scholars portfolio, that's promising scholars, accelerating scholars, enriching scholars, to make sure we are putting those academic intensives involved with our students in the summertime, but also with high dosage tutoring. And then also with students that need more support to make sure they have the enriching support and investments that they need from staff and from our community partners. Safety ambassadors, make sure that we have the security we need in all of our schools through resource officers and school-based security staff from our elementary schools all the way up to our high schools, and then textbooks adoptions that we continue to continue to invest in textbooks. Each year we adopt a new subject. Every 5 years, the state requires a review of the curriculum and new textbooks. And so we are in sync with that. So each year we adopt a new set of textbooks. So one year it'll be science, next year it'll be English, the other next year it will be math, and we just go on a rotating schedule that every year we're adopting a new set of textbooks for a new subject. That's it. And then I have some questions. I have to answer there. They have some other questions I did not put in the PowerPoint. So regarding vouchers, there's been questions around vouchers. So Tennessee imposed vouchers with Davidson County and Shelby County in 2019, and then the next year later, it went to Hamilton County, and that was called the Education Savings Account. And that voucher is $9,152 per student. And that reflects the state and local per pupil average. And so I affectionately call that voucher 1 for us because we were under that pilot program. But then this past special session that we had in January, we had the Education Freedom Scholarship, EFS, I call that voucher 2, just to make it easier. And that's based on the TISA amount. And that amount is $7,295, and that will start next school year. So for all intents and purposes, we are under 2 voucher systems. Voucher 1, which is the Education Savings Account, and that's at $9,000 per student. And then what I call voucher 2, which is the one that was just passed under special session, and that's roughly about $7,000. The $7,000 is based on the state amount. The $9,000 is based on the state amount and our addition to our per pupil amount that we as Davidson County or MMPS pays. So if you want to know, that's the difference with that. The ESA is income limited, has income limit per family. So if you're a family, you can't make more than $78,000 per year to participate in voucher 1, but in voucher 2, and that costs MMPS roughly about $6 million. So voucher 1 costs about $6 million. That was in the fiscal 24-year budget. This year, we're looking at exceeding $9 million for that voucher 1 program to cost MMPS. The second voucher program, there's 20,000 vouchers. 10 can go to those who are roughly 300% above free and reduced lunch, but the other one is unlimited. So the other 10,000, it doesn't matter if you make $1 million, you get access to that $7 million. And then, 7,000. Ooh, I said the wrong number. And then the whole harmless provision will keep state lending funding level through the 26-27 new school year, despite wherever how the enrollment declines. Tennessee has imposed school vouchers for Nashville. I'm reading the same part. Forgive me. And the new voucher system imposes higher income students, which allowing already private schools and homeschool settings to have access to that compared to the first one. We're still trying to figure out what the impact would be of what I call voucher 2. It's still uncertain as they really work out the administrative processes of that. So we really don't have an answer how the new voucher system will really affect us. I say as we go through session and we get more details of how they're going to implement that, we can have a better answer for you. But now, since it just passed literally less than a month ago, as we know, the devil's in the details. And once we get the details, we'll be more than happy to share that with you. With federal funding, how much we receive between educational and education supports and other areas. MMPS receives about 130 million in federal grants. Our largest source being IDEA, which is the Individuals for Disability Education Act. That's the largest part of our federal funding. And Title I funding is the other largest portion of that. And so the effect with that would be seeing how it affects our students that have special education or have disabilities and how we support them. We receive 42 million in school education, school nutrition, including breakfast, lunch, and after-school meals and program summary. It's very important to us as a district that we provide free breakfast and lunch for our students, that meals would not be an issue or hunger would not be a barrier to a student's education. And then regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion, we are aware of the USTOD letter that has been circulated that you probably see in the press and on social media. MMPS does not condone or promote discrimination against any student based on race or any other traits. We will continue review any specific guidance that we see from state or federal agencies with our legal team. There have been several lawsuits that have already occurred to the federal guidance, and as we receive further directions from the government and the courts, we will make sure we're in compliance. But we are not to say that we're not going to evaluate the effectiveness of our programs, but where we will make adjustments, ensuring that all of our programs meet the intended needs of our goals. There was a question about FUSIS, and can you please tell us about how MPS decided to use FUSIS and what was right in our schools? We have an agreement in place with MMPD for sharing camera footage in case of a health or safety emergency, such as a mass violent event. It's necessary to respond to the emergency. This specifically exempts law enforcement purpose. Well, if I can speak today, sorry. It specifically exempts law enforcement purposes from use of the footage. There are safeguards in place to control access to the footage and report if there's any breaches. We did not decide to use FUSIS, that is the MMPD decision. However, how they can feed into the camera data system, into their safety center in order to provide effective response to an emergency. Having a central system of assessing a variety of data sources helps MMPD quickly respond to an emergency. Our camera footage is viewed by MMPM staff and school-based SROs through the Avalon security system. There was another question about expansion of early childhood and pre-K programs. Can you tell us a little bit about it and these efforts and what they look like coming to fruition? We're continuing to explore all available options for pre-K seats at MMPS, as well as potential child care centers. The capital improvement budget that's been submitted to Metro includes items for a daycare center, which is $8 million, and pre-K expansion, which is $41 million. And these additions and expansion to these programs would be subject to available funding. And then for social emotional learning, we believe this is critical also, and how our budget supports that. We have continued to put in our budget social emotional learning supports into our budget. Dr. Battle and her staff are continuing to put the budget together that will be presented next month. We will continue to fund emotional learning support through tutoring, through summer learning, through school counselors, through social workers. We are continuing to do this. And as we get more funding, we will continue to build on it that the mayor and you as a body provide. But this is something that we have done and we continue to do. And as we get more funding, the more we will continue to enhance it. But that we realize social emotional learning is a crucial part of the academic experience. And we always want to continue that and always provide that, because when a child is mentally healthy, they can learn more efficiently and actually retain more knowledge. So that's all I have. I know that was a whole lot of information I threw at you. And I'll turn it back to Chair Porterfield.
Thank you so very much. That was a lot of information, but it was very good and comprehensive. First, I would like to say congratulations on those achievements. They are very well earned and well deserved, and it just made my little teacher heart happy to hear those things. It also made my former teacher heart happy to hear that we have textbooks for all of our students. So that was a big concern when I first joined council about only having a classroom set of textbooks, and I'm so glad that we've been able to provide funding for that over the years. I do have one clarifying question, and we have the capacity to take just a few questions, but we are on a bit of a time schedule, so we want to be mindful of everyone's schedule. My question, Chair Player, was with regards to the voucher 1 and voucher 2 and the 9,000 and the 7,000. Is that like 16,000 per student? Is that a either or can you explain that?
Sure. And I want to clarify, voucher 2 won't take effect till next year, and we won't see the financial impact until the following year because it's based on prior enrollment. So we won't know the immediate impact until the following fiscal year. So no, it's either or. So you choose the education savings account or you choose the second one. So it's either or. You choose one of the other voucher system. You cannot access both and combine both.
Thank you so very much. And I saw, I believe, Councilmember Benedict had her hand up, and then Councilmember Evans Siegel, did I see your hand up? Okay, we just have a hard stop at 6:30, so we have about 15 minutes. Councilmember Benedict, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, school board members. I have a list of questions, but I'm going to ask you two because of time. How much, did you say that FUSIS was put in place because MNPD wanted it put in place, or did MNPS have something to do with that decision?
So with our system, MNPD put that in place so they'll be able to access when it comes to a mass event. So it's one of the things that's part of our system that's integrated with MNPD with our security measures.
What I'm trying to get to there is, did MNPD say, we're going to do this? That's how it kind of sounded when it was presented, that they basically came to the schools and said, we're going to do this, rather than saying, hey, can we?
Yes,
Okay.
but that's part of the partnership that we have.
Thank you. And then on professional development and training, my last question is, are you working with EDCO or Educators Cooperative for professional development?
Oh,
And
I'm
if not-
sorry.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, I misspoke. We don't use FUSIS as a school district as part of it. Yeah, so we don't, as a school district, don't use FUSIS.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
sorry.
you. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And then my second question was, are you, for professional training and development, are you working with Educators Cooperative? And if not, why? And if you, so like maybe budget, maybe, right? So I'm curious how we can get teachers involved with that. I know they work with charters, with public school teachers, but I've heard it's just a phenomenal program.
Yes, I'll like Member O'Hara Block too.
So I've been to a couple of the educator cooperative meetings, and they're amazing. So the organization itself, my understanding of it, and I've talked to some of the leaders, and so if I'm wrong about this, I'd love to know. But it is sort of like a volunteer kind of idea, meaning teachers opt in. So teachers from MNPS district-run schools, from MNPS charters, from private, from Tennessee Charter Commission charters, like any teacher who is interested in it. And I've talked to some of the leaders at times about, how could we better integrate? And one of the things that I think they want to maintain some level of independence from the district, and so that there's not like, but I think we can and are sort of encouraging people to participate as they want to and can. And it's nice to have that sort of organic movement.
So am I hearing that if you wanted to partner with them, it would be more of a decision from the mayor's office than from the council? We passed the budget. From the council's budget rather than an MNPS request of your budget. Is that what I'm hearing?
I think probably yes,
That's
but
what I
also I think it would be a cooperative would want to do that, right? Yeah.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions, Councilmember Spain? Did you want to be recognized, Evan Siegel? Okay. Councilmember Spain.
And real quick, sorry, can I just clarify the FUSIS? So the FUSIS is the police system. We don't have access to it. That's how they view the footage is through FUSIS, that's how they view the footage is through FUSIS. But it's the police system. It's not an MMPS system. Sorry to interrupt.
So to clarify on that, before we go to Councilmember Spain, MMPD uses FUSIS to tap into MMPS cameras if there is a thing that they need to tap into your cameras for.
We'll make sure, can we clarify? Can we make sure we get a clearer answer and we'll
Answer and get it
clarify? Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thanks. Councilmember Spain.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you all for being here. I just want to follow up on the chair's question on the variations between voucher 1 and voucher 2.
Yes.
Voucher 2 includes the so-called hold harmless provision through 26, 27? Or 25, 26? I think through 26, 27.
Yes.
Is that right? But voucher 1 doesn't have any sort of hold harmless provision, so we're on the hook for those $7,000 some odd dollars per student. We would actually be better off if there were only voucher 2 instead of both, at least for 2 more years.
So, yeah, so the first one's 9,000. We're on the hook for that one because that is part of our TISA formula. So that funding comes out of our TISA allocation. And the whole harmless level is through 26 to 27 school year. So we really won't see the effects until after that.
But that only applies to the $7,000 some odd dollar version in voucher 2, not the $9,000 voucher 1s.
So currently, we're on the hook for the $9,000 one because that has already been in place for the last couple of years. And so with this new one, it doesn't take effect until next school year. I think there's a year of hold harmless, so we won't get any data on the impact until probably the end of next school year. If that changes, we can update you. But currently, as it sits, we probably wouldn't understand the level of impact immediately.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Evan Siegel.
Thank you, Chair. I just, on the classroom associates, are those just substitute teachers or do they also serve as like floaters for reading help and math help and sort of, I would think the need for substitute teachers is probably unlimited in a bigger school, but some of the smaller schools, there probably might be days where you don't need that. So I'm just curious how those work.
Okay. So, as far as the classroom associates can come in as far as full-time or part-time positions within the schools, depending on the size of the school, will depend on the number of positions that are available for that. But part of the role of our classroom associates is to be support systems. So they're kind of, I wouldn't deem them necessarily as substitute, more as full-time assistants that work with alongside teachers and within classrooms and can fill in when subs are needed within the classroom and fully integrate. So they are receiving the same training that our educators are receiving in all measures so that they can seamlessly come into classrooms and continue instruction and lessons throughout the day. And they can do other things as well.
That's great. I mean, we know that's what kids need, right? Like they need that level of support sometimes. On the textbook adoption, you mentioned that those are sort of rolling in and every few years we adopt like a new subject. I know some schools are moving away from textbooks, right? There are some schools, especially in like middle and high school, where you're seeing they're going to online books or to teacher-based curriculum. I would imagine that with the state curriculum and the size of our district, that's very challenging, but I'm just curious if we're doing that at all for anyone.
So, you can do it. We have a lot of expertise
we're-
here.
So in the high schools especially, we're more frequently using things that are online. So I have a high school student, she mostly uses things on her computer. However, there are books and things available as well. We do a lot of what are known as consumables. So part of the reason that you see annual cost of adoption and textbooks, there's sort of two reasons for it. One, if you're using something that's online, it's going to have a licensing requirement to it. And two, if you're using something that as we call them, consumables, which basically means like a workbook your child might come home with, or something that they can use sort of to be in an active way, writing, answering math questions, et cetera. And so consumables are the type of thing that change from one year to the next, or they are being utilized by a student one time and then get utilized again. And so a lot of those have annual costs to them, which is part of why you'll see that again in budgets each year. But when we go to an initial adoption, that's a sort of larger cost when we're sort of switching from one thing to another. It both involves purchasing the materials and also purchasing the additional training and other things that go along with it. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. I was just curious if like literally everybody was still carrying around like science textbooks.
More so in the elementary and middle school grades, you'll see physical books, and more so in the high school, you're going to see things that are online.
And I know we worked really hard to get electronics in the hands of all kids during COVID. Are we still able to keep that up? Is that part of the ESSER Bridge funding that y'all are talking about?
Yeah, so we've worked that in, that we call it like electronic refresh. So computers are broken or no longer in use, how do we update those in a systematic fashion? So that's also, we have worked that into our operating budget. And even at times, even used capital, no, that was just for textbooks. But we have used, that's part of our operating budget, and we continue to have that, and we continue to budget for that.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, and then also, just because they're electronic does not mean they're cheaper. That's kind of that's also the natural assumption that you would think, because you're not actually printing something, but our textbook businesses do not see that the same.
Just a bit, one more thing to add to this, because I think it's interesting. One of the things that that happens also is we are using a lot of sort of how do we refer to it? But like if you have a material that is actually like the Constitution or something like that, that's public domain, but we are using a lot of sort of things that you have to buy, like you have to actually purchase the book itself, right? I can't think of the word. Anyway, I don't know why I started talking.
And then as far as that's concerned, the technology piece, or I think it's the book piece, all of that is a one-to-one combination of ESSER and capital that were utilized
For the technology, for the
Yes.
laptops.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Evans.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to be reminded, because it's been a long time since last year, about on the 42 million that you quoted on the school nutrition federal funding. Is that the full cost of the nutrition program? Okay, do you recall how much the extra money is
I
that
cannot
we provide?
recall, but we do supplement our nutrition funding with our operating funds to be able to pay wages and benefits and to supplement it. So it was a self-sustaining fund at one point in time, but then now we do have supplemental with our operating budget.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. And the last question we have here is from Councilmember Benedict, who had to run, but she wanted to know, how do our safety measures compare to cities and communities that have also had school shootings? How do our safety measures compare to cities or communities that have also experienced school shootings?
I mean, I would say that we have a great response. I mean, we unfortunately, we learned from Covenant, and we put much more robust response rate between Chief Drake and Chief Swan and Dr. Battle. You saw a very efficient, very seamless response to that, which I would argue, and I would put up against any other school district in the country. The fact that we had our kids back home by the close of the normal school time, and the incident happened around 10:30, 11 o'clock. that we took 2,000 students from one property to another piece of property and then released them to their parents in a systematic way. Several thousand people, I mean, you can't even get to a concert that fast sometimes. So it's one of the things of really thinking about how quickly we did that. So be able to assess the situation, respond, go to a relocation site, and then release the students to their parent and guardian shows how efficient and how well that is done. And way we have made that very seamless project that I would argue that I will put it up against any other school district in the country with way we were able to secure the location and be able to move forward through the system.
Thank you so very much, and we are going to. Oh, okay. We are going to go back to Chair Player for a answer to the FUSIS question.
Yeah, so following up on the FUSIS, the FUSIS is a control center to ingest footage into into MNPD's safety center. So they only access it during an emergency situation. It helps to create a seamless police response so they can provide real-time info to officers responding. So the MOU that we have between MNPS and MNPD SROs in schools and our staff, we only use the, is it a Vigilon? Yeah. And then the MOU prohibits MNPD from using FUSIS unless there is an emergency attached to health and safety. So it's not a regular use, it's only during health and safety emergencies.
Thank you for explaining how FUSIS is going to be used. I think the question, if I understood it, I think the council member was trying to figure out if MNPS chose to use FUSIS or if MNPD came to MNPS and invited you all to use FUSIS, is the way that I understood the question.
I think that is a part of the MOU during the safety and emergency protocols. So that is probably a discussion between our team at MNPS and MNPD around safety measures and how to implement the best safety measures for that.
Okay. Thank you so very much. And again, thank you all for taking your time coming out this evening and updating us on all things MNPS. And thank you for your service to our wonderful city, students, and families. And with that, we will call this meeting to be adjourned.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.